Okay, cool. Gonna give it another 20 seconds or so, give people a chance to join.
Can we make sure that we start the live stream as soon as you're planning to start? So if
cool.
you want to delay, that's fine. Just tell the
Right.
moderator, like, don't start it yet.
Right.
That's the reason they're
Okay,
asking.
cool.
So otherwise,
Right,
we
cool.
have videos that are 30 seconds
lagging.
of.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll get started. Hi, my name is Ray Pake. Hopefully everybody's staying safe. I manage the code contributor program at GitLab and honored to facilitate a conversation today, joined by the rest of the team members from the community relations team. So I already see a question there that's posted on the Google Doc. And for the team members at GitLab, I did send a link out to the presentation yesterday. So hopefully you had a chance to review it. So let's just dig into the questions that's in the document. Stella, not sure if you're online, and if you are, please verbalize a question.
Ray, I don't see Stella on the call, but I'll read it for her.
Yeah.
So
Please,
Stella
thank you.
asked,
Yeah.
on slide 4, code contributors went up 100%, but contributions went up 34%. Why do we have fewer contributions per user?
Yeah, cool. So great question. I think this, I already started to type in an answer there. I think this is a reflection of we have a lot more casual contributors versus regular contributors. I mean, we did put some work into growing the base of regular contributors. I mean, for example, the people that are doing more than a handful of MRs get merged per year. So you can see the top contributor, top annual contributors page that we've been publishing since 2018. So the number has gone up for the regular contributor base from 2018 to 2019. Yeah, obviously more work needs to be done there, but we also need to keep in mind that, I mean, a lot of the community members are contributing to GitLab in their own spare time. So, I mean, even if like people are doing like a 20 or 25 a year, that's getting 2 MRs merged per month, which, I mean, depending on the nature of the work, which would require a lot of time or effort on their part. I mean, hopefully that provides a context. Not sure if that fully answers the question, but I mean, others, if David or others, if you want to jump in there with more background, feel free to do so.
No, I don't think I've got anything to add. Thanks, Ray.
All right. Cool. All right. I think the next question is from you, Sid.
Yeah. We offer open source projects, for example, the option to get a license, either a completely free license without support, or they can pay a little bit to get support as well. I wonder how popular the support option is. Not that we necessarily want to make it more popular. We just want to get a feel for, do people, I assume that 98% is fine without support, but I want to kind of check that with what you're seeing.
Not sure if anyone has like more precise details, but as far as I know, it was selected like maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in total over this, I think, 1.5 to 2 years, something like that. So barely never.
98, 99%.
Yeah, exactly.
Without support. Cool. That's
Yeah.
what I suspected. And I think that's totally fine. Thanks for that.
Just to add on to that, so I am running the GitLab for Open Source program. And while that's the case that people don't purchase support, we have 2 main components to the open source program right now. One is where they just go through the normal application process, and another is when larger organizations, big foundations, big projects come to us directly, and we kind of help them through that process. And one of the things that I'd like to do is formalize that process a bit more, because while we're helping them evaluate the migration and helping them with several of the blocker issues, there is more support needed. And you know, it doesn't really fall into the same user case right now, but I just want to kind of more clearly differentiate what support means, you know, direct lines of access to us and how that factors into everything. because there is quite a bit of support needed for the GitLab for Open Source program, at least for certain projects.
Thanks for that. I have the next question as well.
Yeah.
I saw on slide 24 that the number of active institutions is, I'm not sure. I think it's falling based on the data. How can we reverse that trend? How can we make sure it's growing? Is there enough awareness? Do they need additional tools? Do we need to provide additional use cases? Do we need to provide software to make it easier for educators to kind of do homework assignments with GitLab? What are things we can think about?
Sure, I can answer that one. Thanks, Sid, for the question. So this is a work in progress dashboard that the data team just created for us. And if you look at the timeline there, it goes out to FY22 Q2 and FY23 Q2. So it's, for some reason, the dashboard, the timeline there is not reflecting it's going out into the future. I think what's happening there is they're looking at the total period of renewal. I'm not sure. So I've asked them to change the x-axis there so that it's current instead of projecting out into the future. So I think the decline there is a little bit of an artifact of the graph itself. But this is the first time that we've had a good look at what active institutions, meaning how many institutions are renewing. So I can't really say right now that it's declining or not until we take a closer look at that. But I will say for sure that there's a couple of known things that we're working on to improve the adoption rate at universities. And one of them is that right now we're requiring 2 separate licenses for teaching, learning, and research as fits into our EDU program. And then IT infrastructure management fits under a paid license that we're selling to the university. And so that really creates the need to have 2 different licenses, and it's become a little bit of a barrier to adoption. So we're working with the sales team and pricing to see if we can come up with a paired offering that would allow both use cases under one license. So that's one thing.
You can even think of something like an honor system where you just offer kind of the unlimited license, but they have to specify how many IT people they have on it or something like that.
Yes, we've proposed that. It's a little bit of a challenge because obviously the sales team is charging on a per user basis, and so there's a little bit of debate back and forth there on trusting universities to count people and students versus IT professionals. So it's definitely something that we need to dig in a little bit deeper around there to come up with a consensus model.
Thanks for that.
Christina, perhaps it might be worth mentioning the work that you started doing outreach as well, which I think is another important component of this.
Yeah, so when I joined in November, we really didn't have a base of connecting with the users who have signed up for the program. So it's been one of my goals since coming on board to start building relationships with these universities and also connecting with them more. So for example, we're having our first virtual education meetup next week. So that's one thing, is connecting with them. And then I think another thing is definitely providing more resources around training and learning GitLab. I think that's one thing that can really drive adoption. So we're really excited to see what professional services and David Summers' field team are doing with the LMS LXP initiative. So I think that's something that will really help drive adoption forward once we can provide more learning material. Okay,
and are you able to use the current GitLab Quick Start materials?
Yes, we can definitely use those.
Just at the same time, there was a discussion among our team where we were saying that it would be really nice to have more quality videos because this type of audience sort of expects that. So you know, a lot of our training videos right now are people kind of doing things on their own and just having that become training videos, as opposed to like purposefully creating something that's high quality and like tailored to these users. So it's something that we've floated as, you know, something for marketing to consider, whoever's, you know, able to make those in the future.
Thanks for that.
Cool. Any other questions? I don't think I see any new. Oops, maybe somebody's typing.
I'm curious how
Yeah.
the move to online meetups is going and general feedback you're hearing, and if there are still like geographic boundaries for meetups when they're online.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I was hoping I'd get a chance to talk about those. So in the middle of March, we made a move to start doing more virtual meetups. And since then, we've created, you know, in addition to hosting our own virtual meetups, we've created a lot of resources to support our community organizers who want to organize virtual meetups for their kind of geographic groups. I think, you know, a few things that we've noticed, you know, one is because of the fact that these are virtual, regardless of whether it's, you know, the London meetup group putting it on or the, you know, GitLab kind of organizing, we're seeing global audiences participate in the groups, which is pretty cool. I think another thing that's interesting, you know, that we've learned is that in some cases, kind of collaboration and conversation is a little bit easier to facilitate in these types of settings because of the structure to the agenda, and you're kind of forcing people into breakout groups at points. And so it becomes a little bit easier for them, you know, I guess for people of a certain personality type who may not feel comfortable walking up to a group of strangers in a, you know, large auditorium or, you know, cafe or wherever the meetup was being held. It can be a little bit more comfortable for them when they're kind of automatically assigned to a room and they're in there and they can choose whether or not to have their camera on. And so they can have a little bit more control. And so we've seen, you know, I think more personality types be able to participate in conversations and things, and just a greater number of people participating in conversations that you might see, you know, at an in-person event. So there's been some cool outcomes from the virtual meetups. I think, you know, the area where we need to improve the most is getting more community organizers from these like local groups to organize the events. Right now, it's been very centralized, and I've been doing a lot of, I've been very involved in helping execute those events. But I'd love to see if folks feel more comfortable and more empowered. And I think, you know, as folks both participate in more virtual meetups and then get some experience organizing themselves, I'm hoping that, you know, we'll see that kind of voluntary organization happen a little bit more.
That's awesome. So is the average number of participants per meetup higher than it used to be?
I think so. We see between like 30 and 70 people participating in the events. I think events that overlap like US and EMEA tend to have higher participation than when we're scheduling ones to be like US and APAC. So there is like a time zone component, I think that we've noticed is impacting attendance, but yeah, I think the participation is probably higher for the virtual events. I don't know if at some point, you know, there'll be virtual event fatigue and folks will, you know, kind of drop their participation. But for right now, we're seeing more participation in the virtual events than we saw in our in-person events.
That's awesome. Thanks, John. Time zones are the problem of all things.
I don't know if it's necessarily a problem. I don't like to think of like the number of people attending is kind of like the mark of a good meetup. It's really like, what are the people that are attending getting out of it, and how do they, you know, leave feeling? And so I've actually felt like some of our, you know, smaller meetups like have been just as good as the bigger meetups.
Thank you.
Yeah, and a quick plug for a virtual meetup. I was in one that John organized yesterday, and the topic was, you know, contributing to GitLab, and we created a list of about 20 documentation errors that people can fix with the quick MR, and we had I mean, very active participation. I think we had like a 25, 30 people, mostly in the US, but also a lot of people in Europe. And I think we had about 10 MRs come in as a result of that. So I think it was like a time well spent, and love the interaction. Yeah, and then even in breakout rooms, there were, I mean, I thought there was some, I mean, not directly related to contributing to GitLab, but a lot of interesting conversation as well about like open source activities in general with during the COVID-19 situation that we're in.
Yeah, I would welcome everyone at GitLab who wants to participate, either as a speaker or someone who just wants to kind of come and connect more with the community, you know, to carve out some time to participate in one of our meetups. And you can go to about.gitlab.com/community/virtual-meetups. And we have an events list there, so you can know when the next virtual meetup will be scheduled.
Any other questions? Let me see if there's anything on chat. Give it 10 more seconds in case people have any questions.
In the history of GitLab, as soon as you set a deadline, no one has ever responded. But I want to conclude by saying thanks for all the data. Thanks for it's a very clear presentation with all the like, this is going well, this is not going well. Lots of graphs about the core initiatives. It's super helpful. Thanks for that. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks. With that, I guess we'll wrap up. Hopefully you'll have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.